The stars above Ethora Prime sparkled like dancing fireflies. It was a peaceful, glowing planet known across galaxies for its beauty and art. Once every 100 years, the intergalactic cultural exchange was held on this world. The greatest artists from alien worlds came to perform, sing, paint, and play music. This year, for the first time, humans were invited. Inside the shining glass dome called the Grand Hall of Resonance, thousands of alien beings sat in curved silver seats. Floating screens showed live views from other planets. Creatures of all colors, shapes, and sizes watched with great interest. Most of them had never heard human music before. Some thought humans were too new, too simple, to offer anything special. One of the human stars was male Renzo, a famous pianist from Earth. He had played in space stations, moon colonies, and deep ocean domes. His fingers moved faster than machines. His face always showed confidence, too much. Some said. Renzo stood near the front row, wearing a shining black suit and white gloves. He didn't speak much, but when he did, it was often to show how skilled he was. Nearby, a quiet woman stood by herself, watching nervously. Her name was Clara. She was not a musician, not a performer. She worked as an assistant, helping tune instruments and carry schedules. She had come only to help. Clara had plain clothes, soft eyes, and hair tied in a simple braid. She had never been on stage. She had never been on TV. She had no idea her life was about to change. As the next performance ended, an Ethereal announcer floated onto the stage. The alien had no mouth but spoke through light signals that translated into words in the air. Next performer, human delegate. Clara. Renzo turned sharply. Clara? He said, confused. That must be a mistake. Clara blinked. Me? I'm not. There must be an error. A young Ethereal floated forward, holding a glowing scroll. Your name is on the list. You are requested to play the living piano of Ethora. Renzo laughed loudly. She's not a pianist. She probably doesn't even know what key is what. This must be some Earth joke. Then he smirked and said loud enough for the crowd to hear, Go on, Clara. Show them what Earth's best assistant can do. Clara froze. Aliens stared. Cameras zoomed in. Renzo's voice echoed like a challenge. She wanted to run. But then something inside her said, Try. Clara walked slowly to the stage. Her shoes echoed against the shining crystal floor. The lights dimmed. The living piano, a large glowing instrument with floating keys and shifting colors, sat silently in the center. It was not like a regular piano. It didn't have wood or strings. It was made of energy and emotion. It only played when it felt. The performer's heart. Clara sat down. She had no gloves, no special training. She placed her hands gently over the strange keys. Silence. The crowd waited, some ready to laugh, others curious. Clara closed her eyes. She remembered her small home on Earth, the dusty piano in the corner, her mother's soft humming. The nights she played for her sick father. She had no lessons, just love. She remembered playing for the joy of it when no one watched, when no one judged. Her fingers pressed the first note. A single tone filled the hall. It was soft, like a whisper. The piano responded, not with flashes or lights, but with warmth. Clara played again. A simple tune, a lullaby. The colors above the stage shifted. Blues and greens flowed like water. Gentle winds moved through the dome, though there were no windows. The alien sat still, confused. Then Clara played more. Each note was slow but full of feeling. The music painted pictures in their minds. Sadness, peace, hope. The living piano awakened. Its form changed. It wrapped sound around her. It echoed her memories. Some aliens began to cry, though they didn't know why. They felt her music, even without understanding the notes. Male Renzo stood with his mouth slightly open. He had played the piano 1,000 times, but it had never reacted to him like this. Clara's hands moved with care. She wasn't perfect. She hit wrong notes. Her timing wasn't exact. But each mistake was real. Each pause meant something. The song ended slowly. The last note hung in the air like the last light of sunset. Silence again. That applause. Loud, strong, echoing from every wall. Not from humans, from aliens. Creatures with no hands clapped their wings. Beings with no mouths cheered through their eyes. The hall had never seen such a moment. Clara stood up. Nervous and shaking. Renzo stepped forward, still not clapping. Lucky moment, he said, half to himself. Probably the piano glitched. The Etherin judges floated down, their robes glowing gold. One of them spoke with a deep voice. The piano responded to her truth. It has not done this in decades. They looked at Clara. Would you honor us by playing again? At the grand showcase? Clara opened her mouth but couldn't speak. The lights dimmed again. The crowd continued to cheer. Somewhere in the stars, a new story had begun. A story of a woman who didn't plan to be special, but who played from the heart and made the galaxy listen. After the performance, Clara stood backstage, her hands still shaking. Her heart was beating fast. She had never expected this. She had only played from her memories, from her feelings. Yet now, aliens from across the galaxy were asking her to play again. She looked at her hands. No gloves, no training. Just emotion. Behind her, the great doors of the grand hall were slowly closing. Applause still echoed across the curved dome. Some aliens had tears in their eyes. Others were simply silent, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Clara didn't understand it herself. She walked toward a quiet corner, hoping to be alone. But before she could rest, a bright floating drone appeared. It had a smooth, silver body and gentle blue lights. It hovered near her face and projected a soft voice. Clara of Earth, the Etherin Council invites you to perform at the final showcase in 3 days. Do you accept? Clara blinked. Me? Perform again? Yes, your music connected deeply with the living piano. You must return. She didn't answer right away. The final showcase was the biggest event in the cultural exchange. Only the most skilled musicians were chosen. It was watched by billions of beings across the galaxy. I don't know, Clara whispered. Before the drone could reply, a voice interrupted. Of course she doesn't know, said male Renzo, stepping into the light. She isn't a real pianist. Clara turned. Renzo looked calm, but his eyes were sharp. He folded his arms. You were lucky, Clara, he said. You hit a few notes and made the piano glow. That's all. It wasn't luck, the drone replied. The piano responded to her feelings. Renzo gave a small laugh. Feelings? That's not music, that's guessing. Clara didn't argue. She simply looked down. Renzo stepped closer. You embarrassed Earth today. Not because you failed, but because the galaxy thinks that was our best. What happens if you perform again and fail? What happens if the piano doesn't respond next time? Clara looked up. Then I'll play anyway, because it's not about showing off. It's about telling the truth. Renzo paused. He wasn't expecting that answer. Without another word, he turned and walked away. His long coat flowing behind him, the drone hovered closer. Clara, shall we confirm your name for the final showcase? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Yes, she said quietly. I'll play. The next day, Clara was taken to the Resonance Garden, a quiet training area where musicians could connect with Etherin instruments. Floating flowers glowed with sound. Wind moved in soft musical waves. Everything sang. An Etherin mentor named Cyril greeted her. He was tall and clear-skinned, with eyes like crystal. His voice was calm and kind. You play not with your hands, but with your heart, he said. I'm not sure I can do it again, Clara said. Then don't try to repeat it, Cyril said. Instead, tell a new story. Clara was given a smaller version of the living piano. It hovered before her, reacting to her mood. If she felt joy, the keys turned gold. If she felt sadness, they turned blue. She touched the keys gently. The piano answered her, just like before. This time, Clara didn't think about being perfect. She didn't try to impress. She just let her memories guide her. She thought of her mother's smile. She thought of rainy nights in her little town. She thought of the time she played for a lonely child in a hospital, who had smiled for the first time. Each feeling became sound. Each memory became a soft melody. Serial watched silently. "You are rare," he said softly. "Most try to control the piano. You let it speak." That night, news of Clara's music spread across the galaxy. Alien news screens showed clips of her performance. Artists on distant planets tried to copy her style. Some praised her. Others were unsure. On One World, a critic wrote, "She plays like a beginner, yet makes the stars weep." Male Renzo sat alone in his guest room. He re-watched Clara's performance. Many times. He noticed the small mistakes, the uneven timing, but still, something in the music moved him. He tried playing the same piece, note for note, on a training piano. But the sound was different, cold, empty. He frowned and stopped. How does she do it? He whispered. The next morning, Renzo called a press meeting. With dozens of alien cameras around him, he made an announcement. "I challenge Clara to a duel of tones at the final showcase." The crowd gasped. A duel of tones was a sacred Etherean tradition. Two performers played in turns. The audience and the piano itself judged who connected better, who told the stronger story that had never been done between two humans before. When Clara heard the news, she sat in silence. "Why would he challenge me?" she asked Serial. "Because he is afraid," Serial answered. "Not of losing, but of being forgotten." Clara wasn't sure she wanted to compete. She didn't want fame or victory. But Serial reminded her, "You are not playing to win. You are playing so others can hear what a human soul sounds like." Clara nodded slowly. 3 days remained until the final showcase. The galaxy was waiting. Clara sat near the balcony of her guest chamber on Ethora Prime, looking out at the glowing clouds and the twin moons. The stars above her blinked gently, as if listening. Inside her, a quiet storm was building. She had accepted the challenge. In just 2 days, she would face Mel Renzo on the grand stage in a duel of tones. Clara had never imagined her life would lead to this. She wasn't trained. She didn't even read music the way professionals did. All she had were her feelings and the memories she carried from Earth. The room behind her was filled with gifts and letters. Alien children had sent her paintings. Musicians from distant worlds wrote to say how her music touched them. Some said her song reminded them of home, even if they had never been to Earth. But not everyone believed in her. Many people on the galactic news feeds asked if she was just lucky. Some said the living piano was reacting strangely. Others said she had no right to stand beside Renzo, a master with decades of experience. Clara didn't answer those voices. She just kept practicing with the smaller version of the resonator. Every note she played was simple, but true. On the other side of the city, male Renzo stood in a silent chamber. His eyes were fixed on a screen that showed Clara's original performance over and over. His fingers moved quickly, copying her motions perfectly. Still, the result felt empty. He turned to his assistant. "Why does it work when she plays it?" he asked. His assistant, a soft-voiced SI named Learn, answered gently. "She plays what she feels. You play what you know." Renzo frowned. "But I feel too. I trained my entire life. I gave everything for this. Shouldn't that be enough?" Learn was silent for a moment, then said, "Perhaps it's not about what you gave, but why you gave it." Renzo didn't answer. He turned back to the keyboard and began playing a sharp, fast piece. His hands were lightning, but his face was stone. Meanwhile, Clara was invited by the Etherean Council to visit the Hall of Echoes. It was a large glass dome where sound from every culture was stored. You could walk through it and hear the history of galaxies in song. Cyril walked beside her. "Here," he said softly, "you will hear how music has changed worlds." Clara stepped inside. The air shimmered with memory. Sounds from ancient battles, peace songs, lullabies, and laughter surrounded her. Suddenly, one melody stopped her in her tracks. It was a human song, very old, played on a simple piano. A mother singing to her child. Clara closed her eyes. Her chest tightened. "That was recorded 400 years ago," Cyril said. A small moment, but it reached the stars. Clara opened her eyes. "Music really travels forever?" "Only if it's honest," Cyril replied. Clara sat down on a nearby bench and played softly. Not for anyone else, just to remember. The piano shimmered under her touch. Not loud, not perfect. Just real. That night, something strange happened. The living piano in the main hall began to hum without anyone touching it. Its surface glowed faint gold. Etheran scientists arrived. Curious and concerned. "It is responding to something," one said. "Or someone," said another. The piano projected a soft sound into the hall. It was part of Clara's song, repeated gently as if the piano itself remembered her. The sound echoed through the air like a whisper of hope. Renzo watched from above, hidden in the shadows. He didn't understand it. He felt something sharp inside, jealousy, maybe, but also confusion. He turned and left. The next morning, Clara woke early. She didn't eat much. Her thoughts were full of questions. "Why me?" she whispered. "I'm not the best. I'm not trained. Why did they choose me?" Cyril arrived at her door, holding a small crystal disc. "This came for you." Clara touched the disc. A soft light floated up and formed a message from Earth. It was a video from a small school in her hometown. Children were sitting at pianos. "Smiling, Miss Clara," said a little boy. "We saw you on the news. We all started learning piano because of you." The class began to play a simple tune, one that Clara had taught them years ago. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't care about the stage. She didn't care about Renzo. She just wanted to make people feel something. That's why she played. Later that day, the council held a press gathering to talk about the coming duel. Alien reporters asked many questions. Will Clara fail under pressure? Can raw feeling beat trained skill? Is Earth's music finally respected in the galaxy? Clara stood quietly beside Cyril. She didn't answer many questions. She only said, "I'm not here to win. I'm here to tell a story." Renzo gave his own statement across the hall. "I respect Clara's heart," he said. "But art without skill is like fire without wood. I will prove that mastery matters." Both names were now known across 100 worlds. Everyone was waiting for the final showcase. But far from the cameras, Clara went back to the garden and sat at the small resonator once more. She began working on her piece, not to fight, not to prove anything, but to speak to those who had never been heard, to those who had forgotten how to feel. That night, in the stars above Ethora, old radio waves from Earth reached a distant station orbiting an alien moon. A technician there heard the sound and paused his work. It was a simple song. He didn't know who played it. But it made him stop and listen, and far away, without knowing it, Clara's music continued to travel quietly, changing the galaxy. The sun rose slowly over the glowing towers of Ethora Prime. Its golden light reflected off crystal buildings and floating bridges, making the entire city sparkle. This day was different. It was the day of the final showcase, and everyone in the galaxy was watching. Clara stood in the dressing room behind the grand hall. The silence was heavy around her. The only sound was the gentle hum of the city beyond the glass walls. She held her hands in her lap, fingers slightly trembling. Even though she had played in front of people before, today was bigger than anything she had ever faced. The duel of tones would begin soon. Across from her, behind a different wall, male Renzo was preparing as well. But unlike Clara, he was not. Alone. His team of assistants moved quickly, checking his gloves, adjusting his jacket, polishing his shoes, and fine-tuning the digital pads attached to his wrists. These tools helped him move faster and play more notes with perfect timing. Renzo stood in front of a mirror, staring at his reflection. His eyes were calm, but something deep inside felt unsettled. He had spent his entire life becoming the best. And now, someone with no training was standing on the same stage as him. "She cannot win," he said quietly. "But why do I feel like I already lost something?" Meanwhile, the audience had begun to fill the grand hall. There were thousands of seats, and every single one was full. Alien beings of every shape and kind floated, walked, and hovered to their places. Above them, holographic cameras recorded everything for broadcast across the galaxy. Even from distant planets, families gathered to watch the event on glowing screens. On Earth, millions were awake in the middle of the night, holding their breath. Clara's hometown school had set up a large display in the town center. Children held signs that said, "Go Clara," and "Make Earth proud." Inside the hall, the living piano, the resonator, rested quietly in the center of the stage. Its surface shimmered with a soft light, as if it already knew something important was about to happen. The Ethereal head judge floated onto the stage and raised his hand. The hall became silent. "Today," he said, "we witness a duel not of power, but of feeling. Not of speed, but of spirit." He turned toward the left side of the stage. First to perform, male Renzo of Earth. Renzo walked out with perfect confidence. The spotlight followed him. He bowed to the audience, sat at the resonator, and placed his hands on the keys. The moment his fingers touched the surface, the piano responded. Light exploded upward, forming shapes and patterns in the air. His song was fast, powerful, and sharp. Notes moved like lightning. The piano roared with him. Aliens in the audience gasped. The hall was filled with bright energy and spinning colors. Renzo's skill was clear. His fingers never missed a beat. His years of training showed in every note. As he ended the piece with a loud final chord, the lights dimmed slowly. The hall echoed with the last sound. The audience clapped with glowing hands and blinking signals. Some stood. It was a masterful performance. Renzo bowed again, walked off the stage, and stood in the shadows. He watched carefully as Clara was called next. The head judge spoke again. Second to perform, Clara of Earth. Clara took a slow breath and stepped into the light. Her clothes were simple. Her hands were bare. She didn't bow. She just walked quietly to the piano and sat down. She looked out at the crowd. So many faces, so many eyes. She closed her own. In her heart, she wasn't thinking about the audience. She wasn't thinking about winning. She was thinking about her mother's kitchen, her childhood, the laughter of the children she had taught, the small joys of ordinary life. Then she touched the keys. The piano responded instantly, not with brightness or force, but with warmth. A soft golden light flowed out like sunrise. Her melody was slow and gentle. It was like listening to someone speak a deep truth in a quiet voice. Images appeared in the air, memories from Earth. A child running through grass. A family sitting together. Rain falling on a window. A small piano in a warm home. The music filled the hall, not with power, but with peace. Some in the audience began to cry, not because the song was sad, but because it reminded them of things they had forgotten, of feelings long hidden, of love, of hope, of being human, or whatever they were. Even the living piano seemed to soften under Clara's hands. The notes shaped themselves gently, flowing like a river instead of a storm. When she finished, there was silence. Deep, complete silence. And then slowly, applause began. It started with one alien, then another. Soon, The hall was filled with soft, glowing waves of approval. Not loud, not wild, but full of feeling. The head judge returned to the stage. He did not speak right away. He looked at the two performers. He then turned to the audience. "The winner," he said, "is not chosen by skill alone. It is chosen by connection." He paused, and today, the performance that touched us most was Clara's. Gasps filled the room, then cheers, then waves of warm light. Clara's hands shook again, but this time from joy. She had not only stood beside the galaxy's best, she had reached their hearts. Renzo watched from the shadows. For a moment, he felt bitterness. But then, slowly, his face softened. He walked onto the stage. Clara saw him coming and stood up. She didn't know what he would say. Renzo looked at her, then nodded once. "You reminded me why I started playing," he said quietly. "Thank you." Clara smiled. The duel of tones was over. But the story was just beginning. Across the galaxy, people spoke Clara's name with respect. Not as a master, not as a star, but as something more powerful, a voice of truth. And on that day, the galaxy learned something new, that a simple heart could echo louder than the greatest technique. The stars above Ethora Prime shined brighter that night. Even the skies seemed to celebrate Clara's victory. From simple assistant to the winner of the galaxy's most respected musical event, her name was now known across worlds. Clara, however, didn't feel like a champion. She didn't feel powerful or famous. As she sat quietly in her room, she held a cup of warm tea and looked out the window. Her hands still tingled from touching the living piano. Her heart still carried the sound of the last note she had played. She didn't win because she was the fastest. She didn't win because she knew advanced chords or alien scales. She won because her music came from her soul, and the galaxy had felt it. Down the hallway, someone knocked on her door. Clara opened it and saw Renzo standing there, holding something in his hands. He looked different now. Not proud or cold, but softer, human. "I brought this," he said, handing her a small, hand-sized wooden box. "It's the first piano key I ever played on. I've kept it with me for 20 years. Thought you should have it." Clara was surprised. "Why?" "Because I forgot why I started," Renzo said. "You reminded me." They sat together by the window for a while. No music, no words, just peace. The next day, Clara was invited to the Celestial Accord, a special event held once every century. It was not about music, but about peace. Too powerful. Alien empires, the Dalkari and the Marish, had been at odds for generations. Battles had ended, but distrust remained. Talks always failed. Now, for the first time, both sides agreed to meet on neutral ground and hear a performance from the winner of the Etherin Showcase. That performer was Clara. The council believed that if music could soften hearts, perhaps Clara's song could begin a new chapter. Cyril, her Etherin mentor, walked beside her as she entered the Crystal Hall. "This will not be a concert," he said. "It is something deeper. These people do not want to be entertained. They want to be understood." Clara nodded slowly. "I'll do my best." The hall was silent. On one side sat the Dalkari, tall, armored beings with eyes like fire. On the other, the Marish, smooth-skinned, silver-toned thinkers known for logic and memory. Neither group looked at the other. Clara walked to the center and sat before the living piano. The instrument waited for her. She placed her hands on the keys and breathed in. She thought of division, of arguments, of families torn apart. She thought of how, even on Earth, people struggled to forgive. Then she thought of moments when people chose kindness, when neighbors helped each other after storms, when children forgave each other in playground fights, when people reached across differences with music. She began to play. The first notes were heavy and slow, like thunder in the distance, a storm of history and hurt. Then the melody shifted, softer, a beam of light through clouds. A single voice rising. The piano responded with waves of color, deep red for pain, soft blue for hope, and warm gold for healing. Her music was a journey, not from war to peace, but from anger to understanding. The room changed. The air felt lighter. The two alien groups didn't speak, but they listened. Some closed their eyes. Some held their breath. When Clara ended the piece, she didn't speak. She just bowed her head and left the stage. For a moment, the hall remained quiet. Then, to everyone's surprise, one of the Dalkari generals stood up and walked across the room toward the Marish ambassador. Without a word, he held out his hand, and the Marish took it. Later that night, the galaxy lit up with the news. A human pianist had helped two ancient enemies take the first step toward peace. On news screens across worlds, Clara's music played softly in the background. On Earth, people gathered in homes, parks, and schools to hear the story. Not just about her music, but about how one simple woman changed something bigger than herself. Back on Ethora, Clara returned to her garden. The smaller version of the living piano still floated there. She sat and played quietly, letting the sound fill the air like a gentle wind. Enzo joined her. "You keep playing even when no one is watching," he said. "I'm not playing for people," Clara replied. "I'm playing for the moment." He nodded. "I've been thinking of something." "What?" "We could write a piece together. You bring the heart, I'll bring the structure." Clara smiled. "A duet?" "Why not?" Renzo shrugged. "Maybe it's time I learn how to feel again." They began to write slowly, carefully. A song of two paths meeting. Two souls speaking. In the days that followed, Clara received more invitations. Not from kings or governments, but from ordinary beings. A miner on a moon near Sirius wanted her to play for his children. A healer from a war-torn colony asked her to visit. A group of blind aliens from the Astari belt said her music helped them see in their minds. Clara didn't chase fame. She chose to go where music could make a difference. Each place, each person, each note meant something. And everywhere she went, the living pianos began to respond. They had changed too. Some scientists said the instruments now held a memory, a part of Clara's emotion in their core. As if her truth had bent more than hearts. As if her music had bent the stars themselves. One night, as she played under the twin moons again, Clara asked Renzo, "Do you think I was supposed to be here?" He looked up at the sky. "I think you were never supposed to be anywhere else." And together, their music rose into the sky, rising far above cities, through clouds, past satellites, and into the quiet dark. Weeks passed since Clara's music helped two rival empires take a step toward peace. Her name had now reached more than just concert halls. It echoed across colonies, space stations, and even quiet corners of Earth. But Clara herself had not changed. She still woke up early, still sat in the Etheran garden, still touched the piano keys with the same soft care, like greeting an old friend. She had grown famous, yes, but inside, she was still the same girl from a quiet Earth village who once played music for the wind. Renzo, her former critic and now closest musical partner, watched her one morning as she practiced a new melody. He noticed something unusual in her notes, something gentle, but also sad. "That's a new piece?" he asked. Clara nodded. "I'm calling it The Wave That Waits." Renzo raised an eyebrow. "Why waits?" She smiled faintly. "Because I feel like something big is coming." She was right. On a far-off moon, a strange sound had been detected beneath layers of frozen rock. Scientists called it a signal. It didn't match any known language, but it repeated the same 4 notes again and again. The strange part? Those notes matched the end of Clara's last piece performance. When word reached the Etheran Council, they summoned Clara. "You are connected to this," Cyril said calmly. "Somehow your music awakened something ancient or something far away." Clara didn't know what to say. "What does it mean?" "We don't know yet," Cyril replied. "But we want you to go there. Not with weapons, With music. Renzo volunteered to go with her. If she plays, I play too. They boarded a sleek Etherean ship. No soldiers, no generals, just two pianists, a team of sound scientists, and a version of the living piano sealed in a protective pod. The journey to the frozen moon took 4 days. Clara spent her time listening to the signal again and again. Those 4 notes never changed. But as she listened deeper, she noticed something. There were tiny pauses like breaths between the notes. "It's not just a signal," Clara whispered. "It's a message." When they landed, the team set up near the source of the signal. The frozen ground sparkled like glass under the ship's lights. Beneath their feet, something hummed low and steady, like the Earth's own heart. Clara sat at the living piano. The cold made her fingers stiff, but she focused. She began to play. Not to impress, not to amaze, but to answer. She played the 4 notes back to the source. Then, she added one more, soft and slow. A question. The ground vibrated gently. Everyone froze. Then a second vibration followed. And then another. Suddenly, a crack appeared in the ice, not dangerous, but delicate. From the crack, a strange sound rose, not loud, not sharp, but musical. Renzo stepped forward. "It's responding." For the next hour, Clara and the unknown voice exchanged music note by note, like two people learning to speak across a wall. Finally, the ice split open completely, and from below rose a shape tall, glowing faintly with soft, moving patterns. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a creature. It was something else, like living light, shaped into form. Clara's hands trembled, but she didn't stop. She played a melody of peace, memory, and welcome. The being echoed it back perfectly. Then, through the piano itself, a message entered her mind. It wasn't in words. It was in feelings. "You remembered us. Through music, we remember you." Clara's eyes widened. "They're ancient," she said. "Older than any empire. They left long ago, but now they're returning. Because someone finally spoke their language again." That night, back on the ship, Clara and Renzo sat quietly by the window. They didn't talk. They simply listened to the stars. The scientists were still trying to understand what happened. The council was in shock. Some feared it. Some celebrated. But Clara just felt calm. Because now, the music wasn't just about sound. It was about connection across time, space, and even species. She looked at Renzo. "Do you think they'll come to Earth?" He nodded. "Maybe not yet. But soon. And when they do, it won't be with ships. It'll be with sound." By the time Clara returned to Ethera Prime, everything had changed. The message from the frozen moon had spread. More signals were being discovered. Other musicians across the galaxy began hearing echoes in their dreams, melodies they had never learned, yet somehow knew. A wave of music began to rise, silent at first, then louder, more powerful, more shared. They called it the Great Resonance, and Clara was at the center. One night, she stood on a platform built above the Etherean ocean. Thousands gathered. Millions watched from across the stars. This wasn't a concert. It wasn't a performance. It was an invitation. Clara sat at the living piano and began to play. A song made from memory, peace, discovery, and hope. She played for the stars, for the forgotten, for the rising wave. One by one, other musicians joined her from different worlds with different instruments. No one led. No one followed. They simply played together. The music rose. It touched the skies. And then, for a moment, all across the galaxy, every living piano lit up at once. In distant corners of space, ancient lights flickered awake. In dreams, children saw colors they had no names for. And in the hearts of millions, something quiet but powerful stirred, a feeling like home. The wave had started, and Clara, once a simple woman with no stage, had become the first key in the galaxy's greatest song. The stars had never felt so close. Clara stood at the edge of the Ethereal Sea, where sky met water in perfect silence. After the great resonance, her music had spread across worlds. People from every planet were playing unfamiliar melodies that somehow felt like part of them, melodies that matched Clara's dreamlike tunes. But something still remained unfinished. The ancient beings from the frozen moon had not spoken again. They had returned to the depths of the ice after the first performance, leaving behind only a message through music. The song is not complete. Clara didn't know what that meant, but she felt it too, an emptiness inside the melody, like a story waiting for its final words. Back on Earth, Clara's name had become legend. News stations, space agencies, and music schools talked about her discovery. People argued whether she was a genius, a miracle, or just lucky. But Clara avoided the noise. She returned to her small home in the countryside, where wildflowers grew near the river. She brought no guards, no robots, no fanfare. Only the piano. Every day, she sat under the old tree by the window and played. Renzo visited often. He watched her quietly, respecting the piece she loved. Still searching for the last note? He asked one morning. Clara nodded. It's close. I can feel it. One evening, just as the sun set behind the hills, a familiar hum began to rise from the piano's strings. It wasn't Clara playing. The keys moved on their own. One note, then two, then four. Clara listened carefully. These were not new notes. They were the same four from the frozen moon. But now they were shifting, evolving. She sat down and gently joined the song. Her hands followed the rhythm instinctively, and soon a new melody took shape. It was softer, more complete than ever before. The final note formed in her mind, not just as sound, but as meaning. Unity. That night, Clara returned to Ethora Prime. The council welcomed her again, this time not with formality, but with quiet respect. I know the last note, she said. Cyril bowed his head. Then you must share it. A broadcast was planned. Every world that was part of the new peace network tuned in. Ships hovered in orbit. Children watched with glowing eyes. People held their breath. Clara stood once more before the living piano. Renzo stood beside her, though this time he didn't play. He simply placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Go on. Finish it." She began with the four ancient notes, the same ones that awakened the frozen beings. Then she wove in her reply, the question, the invitation, the hope. She played softly, letting each note rise like a star in the dark. The melody built, gently but surely, until it reached the final measure. Clara closed her eyes. Her fingers touched the last key. A note unlike any other rang out clear, warm and endless. The air shimmered. Light poured from the piano. All across the galaxy, living pianos responded. At the same exact moment, they played the final note together. It was not just sound, it was signal. And that signal became a door. In deep space, ancient stations powered on. Across planets, massive rings of crystal rotated. From the heart of the frozen moon, the light beings returned, this time not as echoes, but fully present. They spoke through thought and song. The voice we waited for has come. The music of peace has awakened the gate. High above Ethora Prime, a portal formed. Bright, beautiful, and shaped like a blooming flower made of stars. It led somewhere unknown. The council debated. Was it safe? Should they send drones first? Should they wait? Clara stepped forward. It was opened by music, not machines. It should be answered with music too. Cyril agreed. And so, with gentle care, Clara and Renzo entered a small vessel. Inside, no weapons, only instruments. As they approached the Starflower portal, Clara held a small portable piano on her lap. I don't know where it leads. Renzo said. Neither do I, Clara whispered, but I think it leads to more music. The portal embraced the ship like a warm wind. And then They were gone. What they saw next was beyond description. They emerged into a place filled not with stars but with living sound. Melodies floated like clouds. Harmonies danced like rivers of light. It was a realm made of music. Clara felt peace. The final note had not ended the story. It had opened it. The ancient beings appeared again, glowing gently. This time they surrounded Clara and Renzo, and in unspoken music they said, "You have remembered what others forgot. That sound is the first language. That harmony is the true strength. Welcome to the archive." The archive was not a building. It was a memory space, storing every melody ever played by every civilization across time. And Clara's song, the Song of Unity, was now part of it. She had not just played music, she had healed old wounds, connected forgotten worlds. And reminded the galaxy that greatness doesn't come from fame or status, but from honesty, kindness, and truth. Back in the normal universe, Clara's story continued to grow. More people began to play music, not just for entertainment, but to share emotions. Enemies became friends. Borders softened. Children started learning instruments before they learned to write. The galaxy wasn't perfect. It never would be. But now it had a melody to follow. And it all began with a joke, with a proud pianist mocking a simple woman, and with that simple woman answering not with pride, but with a song. Clara didn't just change the world. She taught it to listen, to hear, and to hope.